Hello again, and welcome back to An Aesthetic Education. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about words, how wonderful it is that simply by listening to these words, we can engage in a discourse, a sharing of ideas and beliefs, and in a small way begin to understand ideas and feelings that are seemingly impossible to fully express. I've always been fascinated by language, not in a technical sense, but in the sense of finding beauty in the expression of ideas of truth. Language is an exceptional thing that we tend to take for granted. Words, those series of sounds that carry so much weight, are too often said without consideration or actual thought. Words are the root of all things. When we use them so unwittingly, when we throw around words like truth, beauty, love, or hate, without even considering what they truly mean, we show a lack of respect. Because words deserve respect. As Tom Stoppard famously said, if you get the right ones in the right order, you can nudge the world a little. Of course, we all know that language and our use of words is far from static. Words are constantly changing, constantly evolving. They are always moving and flying about, dictating our perception and appreciation for life in its moments. The origin of a word, its root, which is the point that first gave our feelings, our beliefs meaning, is frequently forgotten. Let's, for a brief moment, indulge in a little study of etymology and look at the origin of the word root. The word root is taken from the early Scandinavian word rot, which is a similar word across Old Swedish, Old Danish, and Old Norwegian. So let's start with the primary definition. And the first part of any definition of the word root refers to the part of the plant that persists underground, which conveys water and nutrients. The second definition refers to the idea upon or by which a person or thing is established or supported, the means of continuance or growth of something. Two distinct things. One, a practical object that has a direct reference to a thing that we can see and identify. If you were to ask most people where the roots of a plant are located or what they might look like, everyone would have a general idea. Yet the second part, the second definition, is something abstract. It's an idea about the origins of something, how things in our world and in our experiences build upon each other. So how is it that this abstraction, this idea that we are trying to explain through language, can utilize the same word as the word for the part of the plant that brings water and nutrients? To better understand and possibly answer this question, I want to take a look at the etymology of one other word, the word true. The origin of the word true is actually the word tree, or more precisely, the Old English trail. As we can see from our two examples, all language contains our thoughts, opinions, and emotions, which is actually all based upon a deeply felt and expressed symbolism. The word true has its origins from the word tree, because those things that we hold to be true are deeply rooted within the world. You see, there is an interconnection between the use of our words and how the roots of a plant symbolize something that has taken a hold in our world. Roots reach deep into the land and find their place there. Within that environment, they receive nutrients and water, allowing them to thrive. Ideas that are true, that are based on those deep abiding truths, which are as real as the soil from which they receive their source of life, are built deep into the fabric of our existence. Language and the words that we use are the embodiment of these much larger and far older ideas. That is why I believe it is of paramount importance to understand words and respect them. Only then can you even begin to hope that you might be able to understand and express a moral and beautiful truth. I believe that part of the reason why words and our understanding of them have developed in such a way dates back to the origins of many of our modern languages, the end of the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. As I mentioned in an earlier episode, medieval man lived a life filled with symbolism and a desire to recognize one's place within the hierarchy of creation. It is little wonder, then, that the words they created were so connected to and deeply symbolic of the world and the universe as they perceived it. To illustrate this point, and to understand the impact of words within that context, let's read a portion of a poem written by a man who single-handedly did more to foster the creation of art and beauty than any other at the height of the Florentine Renaissance, Lorenzo de Medici. The Supreme Good by Lorenzo de Medici. Lured on, escorted by the sweetest thoughts, I fled the bitter storms of civic life to lead my soul back to a calmer port. And so my heart was carried from that life to this one, free, serene, untroubled, which retains the little good the world still knows. To free my feeble nature from the load that wearies it and stops its flight, I left the pretty circle of my native walls. And having reached the pleasant shady glen within the shadow of that mountain which in its old age preserves its ancient name, there where a verdant laurel casts some shade below that lovely peak, I found a seat, my heart untrammeled by a single care. And over to my left, a limpid spring poured forth its sweet refreshing stream, watering the mead that lay in front of me. Shot through the fresh green grass were brilliant reds and whites from every kind of bloom, and in that loveliness I lay my weary body. As many sweetly smelling fragrances were there as those the phoenix gathers up when she begins to feel the throes of death. In such a charming place I can't believe the air is ever turbulent, or that foul weather or bad luck could cause you harm. So all alone in that delightful haunt, content to be in my own company, surrounded only by my own sweet thoughts, I gazed out on the land. And then I heard a bagpipe sounding with such loveliness the piper's flock of sheep joined in the dance. He'd come to take his nap in the cool shade close by that purling brook, but seeing me, the man was filled with wonder and dismay. He stopped a moment, then recovering his courage with a rustic salutation, he greeted me and so began to speak. "Tell me, what purpose brings you here? Why have you left your theaters, your spacious halls and temples? Why do goat paths please you more? Pray tell, what do you ponder in these groves, diversions, riches, pomps? Perhaps you might want to prize these more by studying our plight." And I to him, "I do not know of riches or honor sweeter than this life of yours, one free of all political intrigue. Among you happy shepherds and you cowherds, no hatred reigns or wicked treachery. And in these pastures no ambition grows. Here one can gain the good and not rouse envy. Your greed has shallow roots, and you're content, delighting in the pleasures of repose. And here one says just what he means. The tongue does not oppose the heart. Not so with us, where he who lies the best is happiest. In lucid air like this, no mouth that smiles conceals a heart that sighs. Not so with us, where he is deemed more wise who has more wiles. With us, who trusts in simple honesty gets called a fool, while those who nest inside those walls regard the swindler as a sage, and friendships measured by expediency. Imagine then how sweet that love must be, which chance alone can sap and vitiate. However can a heart that avarice afflicts and fills with such outrageous hopes, or such excessive fears, discover peace? But dwelling in these mountains, you are not subjected to confusing, vicious thoughts. Your minds are not obsessed by what's in vogue. Sweet fruits appease your hunger, cooling streams allay your thirst, and all your longings are fulfilled in harmony with nature's needs. In summertime, your bed's a pile of leaves. In winter, there's dry hay inside a hut that gives you shelter from the frost and rain. And though your clothes are not like those sought out in foreign lands beyond the salty waves, you're just as happy wearing shaggy hides. How sweet your sleep, devoid of any cares, among these branches where the murmurings of mountain streams sigh answers to your snores. The sylvan nymphs most often gather around this charming spring to sing in harmonies far lovelier than any earthly sound. To this sweet stream of song so delicate and bright, to bagpipe tunes and your own lays, the nightingale and other birds reply. And when it happens that two bullocks fight, you're no less pleased, I think, than those who watch the savage sports inside our stadiums. Then you, as judge, confer the leafy crown upon the winner, while the loser stands there sad, despised, and overcome by shame. Happy is he whose wants reflect his needs, but woe to him whose ever hungry mind cannot possess the thing it covets most. Our boundless longing never dies but grows, and growing racks us all the more. Who yearns the most must always settle for much less. That man who's pleased with what he has seems much more rich to me than he who values what he doesn't have above the things he owns. True wealth is tranquil poverty. So long as it supplies life's needs. If you feel rich or poor, it's what you're used to, nothing more. I'll never fathom those who praise a man whose thought reflects what others think, but damn a mind content in its autonomy. Your life, O shepherd, seems to me the one that most approaches human peace, if that can still be found in this our fallen world. The shepherd did not listen anymore, but sometimes looked around distractedly as if to say he longed again to speak. Heaving a heartfelt sigh, he then began. What error makes you think it happy such a life, or rather such a martyrdom? How can it please you what you praise? And why, once having praised it, must you give it up? Why not secure this peace then for yourself? Why do you veil the truth in such illusions? If truth you know, take up this truth that so consumes you. Live the life you say you crave. There's quite a difference, though, between the thought and deed. The path that looks so fair at first may turn out thorny when you take it up. Is there one thing this life does not make sad? Like beasts, we are exposed to sweltering heat and cold, and that's the sweetness we enjoy. In snowy winter weather, cold and raw, you'll sometimes notice on our mantles icy crystals encasing every tuft of fur. At times, a ruthless wind molests you so that when you try to hide from it behind a rock, the savage gale still seeks you out. Our feather beds are hard-packed earth or stone. To help restore our strength when we are weak, we eat the food that forest creatures eat. And when a wolf deprives me of a lamb, you will not see me suffer less than you when you have lost some splendid, rich estate. Nor would you suffer more than I, although your loss might seem much greater. Small things count the same for me as great ones do for you. It's in these little things that fortune flaunts her power over me. Withholding them, she brings me misery beyond compare. So if I lose a wood or earthen pot, I mourn no less than you would mourn if you had lost a golden bowl, whose worth seems more. The different values placed on wood and gold come not from nature, but from us who judge that one's of precious worth, the other poor. I love my crock as much as you love your bowl, so fortune hurts us equally. Each pines for his own pot with like intensity. The world, I think, agrees that fortune is relentless, full of hate. She crucifies each one of us upon the cross we make. I'm just a shepherd. But I know this ancient maxim. With his own life no man's content. Each thinks the other's life more fortunate. I'll stay where I am destined to remain, and you, where your own star may summon you. And we are not alone. All men condemn their fate, no matter where it stations them. The words of Lorenzo De Medici are ones that we have all expressed at various points in our lives. A tiredness and a questioning of one's place, a need for a break from the trials and tribulations of everyday life, a desire to step away from oneself. This is a poem filled with symbolism and classical references, conjuring imagery that not only paints a picture of the natural world, but the complex layers of human interaction that occur in it. It's within that framework, by hearkening towards images of nature, that beauty is created through the words, and Lorenzo is able to express the emotional struggle that is finding satisfaction with one's situation. There's a fascinating rationalization within the first part of this poem between an individual's wants and desires and reality. The seemingly all-knowing and all-powerful Lorenzo de Medici is taught a moral truth by a humble shepherd. The truth being that no man should covet what someone else has, with the acknowledgement, of course, that man will always be slightly unsatisfied with his own lot. The source of the words are irrelevant. It does not matter that they do not come from a man of a higher social class or one with a status that entitles them to deference. All that matters is that the words that are spoken represent a truth, an actual truth, not one of perception or self-interest, but one that is universal and reflective of a wider and all-encompassing experience. The words of the shepherd are born of experience, the harsher ones of life perhaps, but ones that still allowed him to learn and understand the beauty in this world. The course of this poem continues as Lorenzo searches for the words to express the supreme good, the good that can exist within a person, and that through their soul and through their work can be reflected upon the world. At the very end of the poem, Lorenzo says, "May it blaze with joy in you, for it is led to you, unbounded goodness, truth, and life through you, the way who guides us to this good. And make us love your boundless beauty, free of any care that might the heart torment. O sovereign good, inciting every mind, let us enjoy you always, avid yet content." In our time, we have forgotten the power and the roots of our words. We have distanced ourselves from their meaning and in the process lost sight of goodness, truth, and life. Instead, we have damaged those universal words of experience by adding the determiner my truth, my life. Those additions do not reflect the power and respect that those words deserve. The distortion of words, the loss of meaning, the inability to understand or express universal and moral truths means that we will lose the ability to find and create beauty. Lorenzo de Medici understood better than anyone else the need for humanity to find themselves surrounded by art and beauty. The cynic will say he supported the artist to bring glory to himself and exert political control over Florence. The cynic, though, is incapable of seeing true goodness or unselfishness in any act of humanity, as they themselves would be incapable of such an action. One only has to look at what was created in Florence under the rule of the Medici in comparison to what was created under the rule of Savonarola, who came to power in Florence after the death of Lorenzo. An open heart and a love of beauty is needed to create an environment capable of allowing for the creation of art. The words that we say, the words that we use, the power that we give them reflect our values and our society. When we lose the root to those words, we lose our connections to the past. And if we lose our connection to the past and our appreciation of it, then we will inevitably lose our future. But if we can spend our days in goodness, just as Lorenzo told us, and find joy and beauty in words of truth, then the days ahead may yet be as good as those that have come before. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Altalena. Goodbye.